How you guys doing this evening? Tonight I'm going to do Proverbs 23 verses 29 through 35, and this will conclude Proverbs chapter 23. And starting off here in verse 29, Solomon gives 6 rhetorical questions. Who hath woe? Who hath sorrow? Who hath contention? Who hath babbling? Who hath wounds without a cause? Who hath redness of eyes? Who have we talked about in the last lesson? Who hath sorrow and woe and contentions and a babbling mouth, wounds without cause, and especially redness without eyes? A drunk. A drunk. And Solomon learned the abuse of God's creation and the consequences of it all through Ecclesiastes. He trial tested human behavior and passions and lusts all through Ecclesiastes. The same things we deal with today in life. He tested. Of course, without the modern convenience of this technology that can be a blessing or evil. Tested it all, and he's come to the conclusion that drunkenness cripples a man. And since we're on the subject of it here, I believe, and I believe it is so, that alcohol is called wine in the Bible, but alcohol has medicinal purposes. And when I say here wine, I'm speaking of liquor, beer, mixed drinks, and the likes. And when I say bread, I'm speaking of the 4 food groups, pork, things like that. Wine is not a problem. It's drunkenness. Bread is not a problem. It's gluttony, you see. And they accused Christ of being a wine bibber, a drunk. Let's go to Luke chapter 7, verses 33 and 34. For John the Baptist came neither eating bread nor drinking wine, but ye say, he hath a devil. The Son of Man is come eating and drinking, and ye say, behold, a gluttonous man and a wine bibber, a friend of the publicans and the sinners. Boy, does that not sound like the counterfeit gospel of the New Age movement today that's so popular in the music and sports world? Boy, it does, I tell you. And Christ never abused these staples. In fact, he used the breaking of bread and partaking in wine as significant tools throughout his ministry. And we're to follow the holy example of Christ. Verse 30. They that tarry long at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. Solomon gave his son the physical pains of drunkenness. In fact, God made it possible for wine in moderation, the consumption of it to be a cheerful effect. Let's go to Psalms 104, verses 14 through 15. Real quick here. Psalms 104, 14 through 15. He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of man, that he may bring forth food out of the earth, and wine that maketh glad the heart of man, and oil to make his face shine, and bread which strengthens a man's heart. Wine that maketh glad the heart of man. Herb for the service of man. Now, I'm not saying to go out here and just smoke any herb. We sure wouldn't put some crunched up poison ivy in a bowl and smoke it, would we? I'll stop there. But it's the abuse of wine, alcohol, that gives wine a bad rap. And let's just go quickly here to Genesis chapter 9, verses 20 through 27, I'm going to go through it just briefly and skip around to give you the gist of it. And Noah began to be a husbandman, a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and was drunken. And he was uncovered with his tent, his flesh. He was naked. And Ham saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren about it. Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward so they wouldn't see his father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done to him. Okay, well, you see here, even old Noah had a unguarded affection for wine. It's tough. I used to be a drunk. When I played music for a living, I was a drunk. So I guess you can consider me an alcoholic. It's a battle every day, I tell you. Been sober many years. But I'm an alcoholic, recovering alcoholic. Verse 31. Look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth his color in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. Solomon is not condemning wine, but like Noah, the unguarded affection of it. And see, in Israel, back in those days, there weren't these numerous cultivars of grapes, I wouldn't think. So all the wine had that deep maroon, blood red, beautiful color. Let's go to Deuteronomy 32, verse 14. Butter of kine and milk of sheep, with fat of lambs and rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats, with the fat of kidneys of wheat, and thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape. We've got a contrast here of the red wine, the blood red wine. And let's go to Isaiah 63, verse 2. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine vat? You labor in the wine vats, you're going to discolor red your garments. The unguarded affection of wine, it's a heck of a chore. Hard to overcome, but you got to do it. Self-control. Verse 32. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like an adder. Bible readers that are ignorant of the context of this proverb is saying that it condemns all alcohol. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like an adder. It's the consequences of the drunkenness. Anything that is mood altering, that's the consequences of it. It stings, it bites, it hurts, it destroys your body. It contaminates your mind, body, soul, and spirit. Verse 33. Thine eyes shall behold strange women, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. Two great sins of man is lusting after women other than their wife, and saying perverse things, a filthy mouth. You can learn a lot from somebody's conversation. You know, saying things that are out of character for a Christian. Look at the people that say they're Christians today. Listen to that mouth. Like Solomon was saying in verse 29, the babbling. Well, the babbling for drunks applies to the same thing for the babbling of imposter Christians. They talk to one person one way, and then when you hear them at a distance talking with somebody else, they got a trash sailor mouth. The consequences and the ability to rule bodily passion of lust and darkness, that leads to fornication, and that goes back to self-control. Thine eyes shall behold strange women, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. Verse 35. No, I'm sorry. Verse 34. Ye, thou shalt be as he that lieth down in the midst of the sea, or as he that lieth upon the top of the mast. Solomon's comparing drunkenness here to lying down in the bows of a ship. The nausea, the confusion, the rocking and rolling of the mind, the swaying. Pretty good comparison. When I was like that, I felt like I was in the bows of a ship, rolling with the tides, couldn't walk straight. Drunk! Drunk. Verse 35 now. They have stricken me. Shalt thou say, and I was not sick? They have beaten me, and I felt it not. When shall I awake? I will seek it yet again. Oh, boy. The drunkard drinks himself senseless. That's obvious here. They fall into a comatose state, and they awake to turn to battle with the bottle again. I'm trying to find that verse I wanted to reference. Proverbs 26:11 goes along good with this. As a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool returneth to his folly. Solomon's saying right here. Soon as that drunk wakes up, first thing he thinks about is that bottle. Thinks about that bottle. I'm telling you, alcohol is hard to get over. It's difficult. It really is. Oh, my time's running out again. I must go. Well, I'm not going to be able to read that to you. Anyway, that concludes Proverbs 23. So I want to let you guys know that Gigi's niece is doing like night and day. So much better. You can go back to the comments in my video and you can see her having a conversation with everybody. Updating them about how her, the developments in her, developments in her health is getting better. So y'all can go back to that video and those comments and read all kinds of conversations she's having with everyone else. And I guess I've got so many topics in my head I want to talk about. I really want to get into this new age Christianity that's in the sports and entertainment world. But I think I'm just we're gonna build an altar. We're gonna build a temple, and we're gonna go through the book of Ezra. And after Ezra, we're going to go into Nehemiah, and we're going to build a wall. Build that wall. Build that wall. And we're going to give the comparisons of Donald Trump with Cyrus, so they say in Nehemiah. So we'll start Ezra coming up next. Until next time.